This is the Big O Show. This is the Big O Show.
All right, we are back, and there he is, the man, the myth, the legend that is Mike Triplett. There you go. Mike, the most important question is, the entire damn team's got COVID. How about you? Are you all right?
I am all right. Yes, thank you for asking. But I guess we're still 3 days away from game day. We can't count our chickens yet, right?
So let me ask you, is there a chance, Mike, that any of the guys, is there a chance that any of these guys that are on this COVID list can actually come back before the game, or all these guys that are on the list are definitely out?
No, with the new rules, I do think there are possibilities of guys coming back with just one negative test. And I do think Sean Payton definitely will be back since he was initially sidelined last Friday. But certainly they are preparing. I mean, they were positive tests and just, contact tracing, definitely with the quarterbacks. So they are definitely preparing to have no Taysom Hill and Trevor Siemian in this game, which would mean the starting debut of Ian Book, the rookie they drafted in the 4th round out of Notre Dame. And then his backup would be Blake Bortles, who they're bringing into the facility today.
What'd you see from Ian Book? Because while I watched him at Notre Dame, I never thought he got better as a passer. What did you see from Ian Book in training camp overall?
Well, it was a pretty abbreviated preseason anyway for the Saints because of the hurricane evacuation. They only played 2 total preseason games, and he only played in 1 of them. So we got a small glimpse. The one thing I liked about Ian Book most kind of suits him well, I think, for this situation, though. When I went back and studied a lot of what he did at Notre Dame and then what we did see on the practice field is he's really good at sort of maintaining his poise even when the pocket breaks down. He moves well outside of the pocket. He can keep plays alive and either scramble for a few yards or still find an open receiver if you have to scramble. If he is going to be without both of the starting offensive tackles who've been dealing with injuries, that has really that's what Taysom Hill was dealing with when the Saints only scored 9 points in their 9-0 win against Tampa Bay. That's what Trevor Siemian was dealing with in some of his worst performances. He may have to be able to scramble outside of the pocket. But the good thing about him is, obviously, whether or not you can debate how good he was at Notre Dame and what his ceiling is, he played a lot of big-time football, went 30-5 as the starter at Notre Dame, made it to 2 college football playoffs, the most wins in Notre Dame history. So he's got a lot of experience in big-time games. I don't think the moment will be too big for him.
I look at this game, Mike, and everything is set up for Miami to at least steal the win because, like you just said, they're on their 3rd tackle on one side. They're on their 2nd tackle on another side. I believe they're missing a guard, right? Also?
Yeah.
Am I right? So they're missing
you name
a guard.
A position, they're probably missing someone.
Right. They're down to their 3rd quarterback. My Lord, Blake Bortles is your backup quarterback. But then again, the defense is pretty whole. And they just shut down Tampa Bay. So I'm thinking, okay, this is a game that Miami has to win one way or another. But then I keep thinking, okay, wait a minute, but that badass defense shut down Tom Brady and company. So how do we look at this game?
Yeah.
Because it's really set up for Miami to win, but the New Orleans defense alone could make this game interesting.
Well, you're exactly right. Now, there is one starter on the COVID list, safety Malcolm Jenkins, who played great against Rob Gronkowski the other night when Rob Gronkowski was the only player left to defend for Tampa Bay. But other than that, the rest of the Saints defense is intact right now, and it really is. I don't know if people have followed closely, but since the Saints have won the last 4 NFC South titles, but particularly in the last couple of years, their defense has just become phenomenal. And it's the whole team. I mean, they're ranked 30th in the NFL in passing yards on offense after using Jameis Winston and Trevor Siemian and Taysom Hill and now Ian Book. So their offense is get by, try to run it, try to get it in Alvin Kamara's hands, but they're winning games because of their defense.
So Davenport, is this the breakout year that they've been waiting for from him?
Yeah, definitely. And look, whenever he's been healthy, he's looked fantastic in his career, and that's been a huge if, unfortunately, for him. And he's missed a lot of time this year, too. If injuries weren't an issue for him, he'd probably be a two-time Pro Bowler by now. He's a really effective, dynamic player when healthy, and he is playing the best football of his career right now. So you add that in with Cam Jordan, who just made his 7th Pro Bowl, not at was the NFC's Defensive Player of the Week when he had 2 sacks and a forced fumble against Tom Brady. When those two ends are both playing really well, combined with how talented their secondary is and Demario Davis at linebacker, it really is a complete defense.
What are they going to do? When you look at Sean Payton and the quarterback position, he's taken in a lot of these. I don't know. It's almost like they're reclamation projects in a way.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Because obviously, Jameis Winston, you got to fix his mind because it's not about his ability. It's about him stopping to being a turnover machine. And he was kind of doing that under Sean. Taysom Hill, kind of a project. Ian Book, kind of a project type guy. When's he going to just go get himself like a guy that's a quarterback, that's a young quarterback, he can just develop? You know what I'm saying?
Well, I think they'd love to do that. The problem is they've been too good to draft in the top 10. I mean, it's hard to, they had the 27th pick in this year's position. The funny thing is they were a hair away from drafting Pat Mahomes in 2017. That's the guy they thought they were going to draft that year until Marshawn Lattimore fell to them. And so they kind of stayed put at 11, figuring, we'd be happy with Mahomes or Lattimore. Sean Payton would already be in the Hall of Fame if he got credit for going from Drew Brees to Pat Mahomes. But it's hard to get that guy. It's hard to, the blueprint would be what New England did, having Mac Jones fall right into their lap. But that's easier said than done, and it'll be easier said than done in next year's draft class, which isn't supposed to be great for quarterbacks. So I'm not sure, especially if they scratch out a couple more wins and finish 9-8 and maybe make the playoffs this year. I'm not sure how they can get themselves in position to have a surefire rookie quarterback. So I think the reclamation project route is their best bet. And, it could be Jameis Winston again next year. It could be, who knows, maybe they're the team that ends up with Teddy Bridgewater again or Jimmy Garoppolo or, that path is easier to attain than locking into to a guy, to a top 5 draft prospect.
So let me ask you something. Rodgers, Wilson, Watson.
Yeah. They will be in that mix too.
Okay, because
they don't have any salary cap space, but they never have any salary cap space. And they always figure out how to push it back into future years. The one thing, we've never seen this team go full rebuilding mode, and I think they'll have the only problem with those names you mentioned is I don't know how they'll have the most ammo. Like Russell Wilson has identified the Saints as a team he wants to play for, but I'm sure if Seattle does decide to trade him, they'd like those teams in the top 10 that have two top 10 draft picks. Not, the Saints aren't going to have a lot to offer in trade to get one of those guys, but I think they'll be aggressive. They know how important that position is.
So talk to us here in South Florida and obviously Dolphin fans all over the world on a guy that was a lot of frustrations here, but has been a revelation there in Jeff Ireland.
Yeah.
Because, you just bragged about how good the defense has been. And obviously I know that because I mentioned it, but most people may not really realize how good things have been and how that guy has been, praised a lot for what's gone on in New Orleans.
Well, there's one thing he's always done really well in every stop he's been in. It's where he made his mark in Dallas, and it's what he's done again here, and that's running the college scouting department, and that's his role here, is running the college scouting department and the draft, and they've had a phenomenal run of success. I mentioned that 2017 draft. Man, was he on fire that year. They end up with Marshawn Lattimore, just got named to his 4th Pro Bowl in 5 years, Ryan Ramczyk, an all-pro $100 million right tackle, Marcus Williams, they just put the franchise tag on him at safety this year. Alvin Kamara has gone to the Pro Bowl all 5 years. Trey Hendrick,
our boy,
and is among the league leaders in sacks for the Cincinnati Bengals. Alex Anzalone, who ended up in Detroit this year. And then the guy who was next on their list was Patrick Mahomes, who they thought they were going to come out of that draft with. And they've drafted fairly well since then, but that was the one that rebuilt. I mean, that draft was the foundation for why this team maybe will, go to the playoffs for 5 straight years, even when Drew Brees was in his later years and now is no longer with the team.
Yeah, that's why I keep saying. That's why I mentioned those 3 quarterbacks, because that team that you cover is so good that if they get one of those 3 guys,
Yeah,
Mike, they're a Super Bowl. They're easily one of the 5 best teams in the NFL, and with one of those 3 guys, they're a Super Bowl contender, dude.
yeah, and depending on what they do with Michael Thomas, they will either have a number 1 receiver they so desperately need, or possibly look to trade him for assets. Entire season without him as well, probably would have been the best player on the team if healthy.
But dude, why is he such an a-hole?
Who he reminds me of that I covered early in my career is Terrell Owens, where some of that drama comes with him, but it's all sort of born out of this super competitive intensity. Like, no one has ever accused him of taking plays off or not trying very hard. He just burns red hot. He thinks he's being slighted by people who rank players. He thinks he's being slighted by the players he's going against. But he is really driven to be, a superstar player. And so I think you do have an asset in that capacity, and that when he does come back healthy, he's going to want to remind everyone that, he's still a special player.
Yeah, it's just weird that he has this character flaw, it seems like. You know what I'm saying? Like, he's a sick talent, but then somehow or another, the whole thing with the surgery, he puts it off, and then he has it too late, and it rolls into the season, and it's like, these are things like common sense would tell you, man, you want to do this earlier in the season so you can be available to your team, all this kind of stuff. And then the drama that followed all of that, it's just, will that get in the way of moving him is the question, Mike. Will his character, his attitude get in the way of the Saints actually getting, if they wanted to move him, actually get the compensation that's worth his talent?
No, I mean, I do wonder what they would get in a trade for him, which is ultimately going to determine if they do want to consider trading him. Because, teams are going to want to do their research on what kind of a player he's going to be in the locker room. They're going to want to know how healthy he's going to be. But somebody's going to, if it's not the Saints, who realize, what we need more than anything else is a number 1 receiver, and he's maybe the best one we've ever had. So maybe they won't even want to trade him. But if they do, somebody's going to want that, because, if you channel his talent and his competitive drive in the right way, you get, the last time he had a fully healthy season, he set the NFL record for catches and was the NFL's offensive player of the year. He still can be that again.
So let me just bring something up to have a little fun here. There's a cornerback that's going to want some money, and he just made the Pro Bowl and had the 10 interceptions a year before. The Saints have always been looking for another corner. Miami really needs another wide receiver opposite of Waddle. I'm just saying.
There we go. We just made
Mike
the trade
Thomas
right
for Xavier Howard trade. Would that make sense?
What's funny is I think the Saints were really interested in Xavier Howard heading into the season, or at least made the phone calls. Instead, they traded for Broncos. But then their 3rd-round draft pick out of Stanford, Paulson Adebo, has been, really good for them this year. Heading into the season, we thought cornerback, outside of quarterback with Drew Brees retiring, but we thought cornerback was going to be the big question mark and maybe the fatal flaw for the Saints. That position has actually been really good for them this year, and it's been wide receiver and tight end that have been the downfall of this team. So yes, in September I would have said they'd make a trade like that, but now I actually think they need a receiver more than they need a corner now.
Wow. All right. So X will have to. I still think they might move him in the offseason. I really do.
It's definitely a possibility, especially. The Saints have major decisions to make because
I'm talking about X. I'm talking about X. I think they will move him. Whether it's New Orleans or somewhere else, I don't know. Yeah. But I was just having a little fun with the whole Mike Thomas, because I know he and Peyton have had it out. So I'm just wondering, you know what I mean? Does it look like a house that those two can coexist? Is the thing.
It's possible, but he is the top of a list of a lot of major decisions the Saints have to make this offseason with their salary cap situation and just deciding if they're going to be a rebuilding team or if they're going to stay competitive. A lot of their stars are 30 years or older now, and they need to decide how long they want to keep trying to win with this regime, and if they want to consider a little bit of a mini rebuild, which we've never really fully seen in the Peyton era.
By the way, you can follow him on Twitter at Mike Triplett, and of course, he does his thing for ESPN NFL Nation. So for ESPN NFL Nation, what was your prediction? Can the Saints, with 4,000 players on COVID, beat the Miami Dolphins at home? What is the prediction, Mr. Triplett?
Well, it's funny because I turned in my prediction before we heard about the two quarterbacks, and then I changed it. So I had the Saints winning by 1, and then the Dolphins winning by 3, I think. So I changed it just like Vegas changed it. But exactly like you said, it's the offense that changed, and the offense was already a question mark. The Saints defense could win this game single-handedly. So I think low-scoring, one-score game either way.
By the way, before I let you go, where do you stand on Tua? Are you a Tua believer? Because you covered a quarterback that wasn't really tall, that couldn't throw the ball out of the stadium. You know, all of those things.
Well, and then Teddy Bridgewater had success here too. Right. And that's the mold. It's not out of the question that if Miami trades for one of those big names, Tua becomes available. Maybe Sean Payton decides he's a good fit here. I've thought about that before too. Drew Brees is definitely the model, but you have to build an offense that works around those, because there are strengths and there are shortcomings.
Yeah, like one of the things that I always admire Sean, and you could explain it way better than I can, but one of the things he did for Drew constantly is he always made sure that his centers and guards were elite players because he never wanted that pocket to ever crumble for his quarterback. And I think that's imperative when you don't have a tall quarterback. You got to make sure you give him that clean pocket. And I thought Sean always did a marvelous job of that middle of the line actually being really, really good.
No, you're exactly right. I think that's one of the hallmarks of what Sean Payton did. The guard play in Drew Brees' prime was the best in the league.
Yeah, no doubt. Mike, as always, you're a stud, my brother. Thank you for taking some time. I appreciate you. And you made your video debut on the show, which is just awesome. Thank you, my brother.
While doing the last-minute Christmas shopping, 2 birds with 1 stone. When I saw Omar, with the poop hat and the child, I knew there were no rules and regulations for what you had to look like in the background.
Oh, no, yeah. It's all good, man. It's 2021, brother. We're doing things a different way. Much love, my brother. Merry Christmas. Enjoy yourself.
Thanks.
Be safe. Thank you. There you go. Mike Triplett from ESPN NFL Nation, baby. He's really a good dude, does a great job of covering the Saints on a daily basis. And
This is the Big O Show. This is the Big O Show.